In the early morning darkness of September 3rd, 2025, a small pleasure boat slipped out of a harbor near Algiers, the capital of Algeria, and headed north into the vast, dark expanse of the Mediterranean Sea. This was not a fishing trip or a leisurely cruise. It was a desperate, audacious, and incredibly dangerous act of rebellion. On board were 8 teenage boys, the oldest just 17, the youngest only 14. They had stolen the modern, high-powered boat and, armed with nothing but a smartphone navigation app and a shared burning desire for a different life, they were attempting to cross one of the most dangerous migratory routes on Earth to reach Europe. This is the incredible true story of their impossible journey. A story that would shock 2 nations and reveal the heartbreaking reason why a group of high school students would risk everything for a dream. But before we start our story, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and hit that notifications bell so you won't miss any of our new incredible stories. To understand why 8 children would steal a boat and sail it across the sea, we must first understand the world they were trying to escape. In North Africa, particularly in Algeria, the young generation faces a social and economic crisis of hope. Despite the country's vast natural resources, youth unemployment is incredibly high, and opportunities for a prosperous future can seem impossibly out of reach for many. This has given rise to a phenomenon known in the local dialect as El Harraga, which translates to the burners. It's the name given to the thousands of desperate young men who choose to burn their papers, burn their past, and burn the borders by attempting the perilous illegal sea crossing to Europe in small, overcrowded boats known as pateras. It is a journey that has claimed thousands of lives, a tragic testament to the desperation that fuels it. Traditionally, the Harraga have been young men in their 20s and 30s. But in recent years, a new, even more alarming trend has emerged: the rise of the child, Harraga. Our story's protagonists are 8 teenage boys from the coastal neighborhood of Tamatfoust, also known as La Perouse, a suburb east of Algiers. They were, by all accounts, normal high school students. They were not criminals or hardened delinquents. They were boys who, like so, many of their peers felt that the future held little promise for them in their homeland. According to local activists who knew the boys, they, like many Algerian youths, were captivated by a romanticized and dangerous vision of life in Europe, a vision fed by a constant stream of videos on platforms like TikTok. These videos often portray the Harraga not as desperate migrants, but as folk heroes, adventurers who have successfully conquered the sea and are now living a life of freedom and prosperity. For a group of impressionable teenagers feeling trapped, these videos were not just entertainment, they were a call to action. And so they began to make a plan that was as simple as it was audacious. They targeted a modern, well-equipped pleasure boat valued at over 500 million Algerian centimes, moored in their local harbor. For weeks, they secretly gathered their resources. Using their own small motorbikes, they began to stockpile gasoline, filling jerry cans bit by bit. Then, on the night of September 2nd, 2025, under the cover of darkness, they slipped into the harbor, broke into the boat, and, in a display of surprising technical know-how, managed to hotwire the 85-horsepower engine. With no real maritime experience, no professional GPS, and no adult supervision, they untied the mooring lines. As their families and their entire neighborhood slept, the 8 boys, the youngest just 14 years old, steered the stolen boat out of the harbor and into the open sea, their only guide a simple navigation app on a smartphone. The journey across the Mediterranean is a treacherous one, even for experienced sailors in large, well-equipped vessels. For 8 teenagers in a small, open pleasure boat, it was a near suicidal gamble. The sea was unpredictable, and their journey was fraught with peril. According to one of the boys who later recounted the story, their engine failed at least 5 separate times during the crossing. Each time, they found themselves adrift, a tiny, helpless speck in the vast, empty ocean. And each time, through a combination of sheer luck and remarkable ingenuity, they managed to make quick, makeshift repairs and get the engine running again. Back in Algeria, a panic was unfolding. The boys' families had woken to find their sons gone. The boat's owner had arrived at the harbor to find his expensive vessel had vanished. Reports were filed, and a desperate search began, but no one knew where to look. The boys had disappeared into the vastness of the Mediterranean. Then, after more than 15 grueling hours at sea, they saw it, a faint, dark line on the horizon. As they drew closer, the line resolved into the rugged coastline of the Spanish island of Ibiza. They had made it. The small, stolen boat, battered but intact, roared towards the shore. A wave of triumphant, almost delirious, joy erupted among the exhausted boys. They had gambled their lives against the sea, and they had won. As they landed their boat on the sandy shores of Playa d'Enbasa, a popular tourist beach, they were not just celebrating their arrival, they were celebrating their escape. But their celebration was short-lived. The arrival of the small, unidentified boat had already been noticed by the local Spanish maritime rescue services, who had alerted the authorities. The tourists on the beach watched in a mixture of confusion and curiosity as the 8 exhausted but defiant teenagers were rounded up. The first part of their journey was over. The second, more uncertain journey through the complex legal and humanitarian system of European immigration was just beginning. This is where the story shifts from a high-seas adventure to a complex modern-day social issue. Because all 8 of the boys were under the age of 18, they were not treated as typical illegal immigrants. Under Spanish and international law, they were classified as unaccompanied foreign minors, a special protected category. They were not immediately arrested and put in a detention center. Instead, they were taken to a reception facility, given a full medical checkup, food, and clean clothes. Their initial statements were taken, and they were then placed under the official guardianship of the Spanish social services. They were now, in effect, wards of the Spanish state. Their arrival highlighted the growing phenomenon of the Algerian route, a new and increasingly common migratory path that was bringing a wave of young, unaccompanied minors from North Africa to Spain's Balearic Islands. Back in Algeria, the videos the boys had posted of their triumphant arrival began to spread like wildfire on social media. The news brought immense relief to their frantic families, but it also ignited a fierce and passionate national debate. How could 8 high school students, some as young as 14, plan and execute such a dangerous and audacious escape without anyone noticing? The owner of the stolen boat, while likely relieved that no one was hurt, was now faced with the bureaucratic nightmare of trying to recover his expensive property, which was now considered evidence in an international incident and was being held by the Spanish authorities. The Algerian government was faced with a deeply embarrassing situation. While there was no direct official statement on the specific case of the 8 boys, the president of Algeria, in a speech that came just a day after the news broke, spoke to the larger issue. He stated that if the world wanted to stop illegal migration, it had to invest in creating jobs and opportunities for the youth of Africa. It was an indirect acknowledgement of the profound social and economic desperation that had driven the boys to the sea. The incident became a powerful symbol of a generation that felt it had no future, a generation that saw a stolen boat and a dangerous sea crossing as a more hopeful path than the one that was laid out for them at home. The story of the 8 teenagers who stole a boat to find a new life is a complex and powerful tale from our modern world. It is a story of incredible audacity, of desperation, and of the magnetic, often deceptive pull of a dream. But most of all, it is a heartbreaking testament to a generation of young people who feel so utterly without hope in their own homes that they are willing to risk their lives. To literally sail into the unknown in a desperate and perhaps naive search for a future. Their journey was an illegal act, an act of theft and immense recklessness, but it was also a profound act of protest, a cry for help that was heard around the world.